a wooden box, 3 spinning rotors, and the power to decide who wins World War II. The Enigma Machine created code so complex that breaking just one message required checking 159 million possibilities. The Germans believed it was mathematically unbreakable. They were so confident they used the same machine for 5 years straight. And yet, a team of brilliant minds did the impossible. They cracked it. But the real story, it's not just about breaking a code. It's about the moral weight of knowing your enemy's secrets and choosing when to act on them. This is the story of the machine that should have been unbreakable. Berlin, 1918. Germany just lost the Great War, and when military leaders analyzed why, they discovered a devastating truth. The Allies had been reading their messages for years. Not some messages, not most messages. Nearly every single telegram, every battle plan, every troop movement, decoded and read before the ink was dry. Traditional codes had a fatal flaw: patterns. Human operators would get lazy, reuse the same substitution keys, make predictable mistakes. And once your enemy captured a single codebook, your entire communication system collapsed overnight. You'd have to distribute new codebooks to every ship, every unit, every outpost. It could take months. Arthur Scherbius, a German electrical engineer, had a radical idea. What if you could build a code that changed itself automatically? A code where even if your enemy stole the machine, captured your operators, and tortured them for information, they still couldn't read your messages without knowing one critical detail: the daily starting settings. Here's what made Enigma absolutely genius. You sit down at the machine, you press the letter A on the keyboard. An electrical current shoots through 3 rotors. Think of them like combination lock wheels, but for letters. Each rotor scrambles the letter in a different way. So A might become G after the first rotor, then T after the second, then M after the third. But here's the brilliant twist, and this is what made German commanders sleep soundly at night. After you press A, the first rotor automatically steps forward 1 position, like an odometer in a car. Press A again, the current takes a completely different path through the rotors. You get a different letter. Press A 1,000 times, you'll get 1,000 different outputs. And it gets better. When the first rotor completes a full rotation, after 26 letters, it kicks the second rotor forward 1 position. When the second rotor completes its rotation, it kicks the third rotor. The rotors are constantly changing position, creating a new encryption pathway for every single keystroke. Now, add the plugboard. Before the current even enters the rotors, it passes through a switchboard where you can swap 10 pairs of letters. Maybe you plug A to M and T to Q. That's another layer of scrambling. The math was staggering. With 3 rotors, each with 26 positions, plus the plugboard combinations, plus the ability to choose which rotors go in which position, Enigma could create 158 quintillion, 962 quadrillion, 555 trillion, 217 billion, 826,360,000 impossible encryption keys. That's 159 quintillion possibilities. To put that in perspective, if you tried one combination every second, never sleeping, never stopping, you'd need 5 billion years to try them all. The sun would burn out before you finished. The German military bought thousands of them. By 1935, Enigma machines were standard issue across the Wehrmacht, the Kriegsmarine, and the Luftwaffe. Different branches used different rotor settings, different plugboard configurations, different internal wirings. By September 1939, as German tanks rolled into Poland, their commanders sent encrypted messages coordinating the invasion. They weren't just confident their communications were secure, they knew it was mathematically impossible to break. They were catastrophically wrong. Bletchley Park, England, September 1939. While German forces blitzed across Poland, Britain's government code and cipher school recruited an unusual army. Not soldiers, mathematicians, linguists, chess champions, crossword puzzle experts, anyone who could think in patterns. The mission was simple to state, impossible to execute. Break Enigma before Germany conquers Europe. Leading the charge was a 27-year-old mathematician named Alan Turing, while other codebreakers saw Enigma and felt despair at the astronomical number of possibilities, Turing saw something different. He saw human error. Here's what Turing realized. The Germans had built a perfect machine, but they hadn't accounted for imperfect operators. Every morning at 6 a.m. sharp, German weather stations transmitted encrypted weather reports. Every single day. Like clockwork. These weren't random messages. They followed predictable formats. Turing knew these messages would contain certain words: wetter, weather in German, visibility, compass directions, maybe, temperature. These predictable phrases had a technical name: cribs. If you knew a word appeared somewhere in an encrypted message, you could use that knowledge to dramatically narrow down which rotor settings produced that encryption. But there was a problem. Even with a crib, you still had millions of potential rotor positions to check. Testing them by hand would take years. Enigma changed its settings every day at midnight. You had less than 24 hours to break each day's code, or the intelligence became useless. Turing had an audacious solution: build a machine to fight a machine. The bombe. Picture a bronze-colored beast, 7 feet tall, 7 feet wide, weighing over a ton. Rows of rotating drums, 36 of them in the later models, each one simulating an Enigma rotor. The bombe didn't try to decrypt messages. Instead, it eliminated impossible rotor settings at incredible speed. Here's how it exploited Enigma's fatal flaw. Because of how the rotors were wired, a letter could never encrypt to itself. Press A, you'd never get A back. This seems like a tiny detail, but it was devastating. When the bombe tested a rotor setting and found that it would make a letter encrypt to itself, an impossibility, it knew that entire configuration was wrong. It could eliminate not just one setting, but entire branches of possibilities. Hour by hour, rotor by rotor, it carved away the wrong answers until only one remained. The first bombe went operational in March 1940. It was loud. You could hear the drums rotating from the next room. It broke down constantly. The early models took 20 minutes to test a single rotor order. But it worked. Then came May 1941, and the breakthrough that changed everything. The British Navy captured U-110, a German submarine, before the crew could destroy their Enigma machine and codebooks. For the first time, Bletchley Park had not just a machine, but the actual settings the Germans were using. Within weeks, they were reading German naval communications in near real time: U-boat positions in the Atlantic, attack plans, fuel levels, supply routes. The Admiralty knew where Hitler's submarines were hunting before they reached their patrol zones. But here's where the story gets dark. If Britain suddenly started avoiding every U-boat, changing convoy routes at the last second, rescuing every ship, the Germans would know. They'd realize Enigma was compromised, change their procedures, maybe design a new machine entirely. The code-breaking advantage would vanish. So, British intelligence created the double-cross system. Every decoded message came with an impossible calculation: act on this intelligence or protect the secret. Sometimes they'd send spotter planes to discover U-boats that they already knew were there, manufacturing a plausible reason for the convoy to change course. Sometimes they'd let convoys sail into danger, let ships sink, let men die, to maintain the illusion that Enigma was still secure. Imagine being a codebreaker at Bletchley Park. You decrypt a message revealing a U-boat wolf pack waiting along a convoy route. You know which ships will be torpedoed. You know the names of the vessels, maybe even some of the crew. And you have to watch intelligence officers debate whether saving those men is worth the risk of alerting Germany. One decoded message, one impossible choice, every single day. By 1942, Bletchley Park had become a decryption factory. Over 9,000 people worked there, though most had no idea what their colleagues were working on. The secrecy was absolute. Codebreakers couldn't tell their spouses, their parents, their closest friends what they did all day. They were decoding 3,000 German messages every day, not just military communications, diplomatic cables, supply requisitions, even personal messages between officers. They knew what Hitler was planning before some of his own generals did. They knew Rommel's supply situation in North Africa was desperate. British forces adjusted their strategy accordingly, and Rommel couldn't understand why his supply convoys kept getting intercepted. He suspected spies, traitors, even divine intervention. He never suspected his unbreakable machine. They knew about Operation Barbarossa, Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union, weeks before it happened. Churchill tried to warn Stalin. Stalin didn't believe him. He thought it was a British trick to manipulate him into the war. They decoded messages about the Holocaust, transportation schedules for death camps, execution reports. The British government knew what was happening in real time and faced the horrifying reality that winning the war was the only way to stop it. Historians estimate that breaking Enigma shortened World War II by at least 2 years, possibly more. 2 years. Think about what that means. The atomic bombs were dropped in August 1945. If the war had lasted 2 more years, how many more cities would have been firebombed? How many more people would have died in concentration camps? How many more soldiers would never come home? The number is in the millions. Breaking Enigma saved millions of lives. But the story doesn't end with victory parades and celebrations. After the war ended in 1945, Britain had a problem. They'd captured thousands of Enigma machines from defeated German forces. These machines were sophisticated, reliable, and, most importantly, everyone still believed they were unbreakable. So British intelligence did something extraordinary. They gave Enigma machines away, free of charge, to dozens of countries across Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Former colonies, new governments, anyone who needed secure communications. And then, for the next 30 years, Britain quietly decoded their messages. The full story of Enigma remained classified until 1974. The codebreakers who'd worked at Bletchley Park had kept the secret for nearly 3 decades. Some died without ever telling their families what they'd really done during the war. And then there's Alan Turing, the man who arguably did more than any single individual to win World War II, faced a different kind of war when he came home. In 1952, Turing was prosecuted under British law for being gay. Homosexuality was illegal. He was given a choice: prison or chemical castration through hormone treatments. He chose the treatments. They devastated him physically and mentally. 2 years later, in 1954, Alan Turing died from cyanide poisoning. He was 41 years old. The official ruling was suicide, though some believe it may have been an accident. Britain didn't officially apologize until 2009. The Queen didn't pardon him until 2013, 59 years after his death. The Enigma machine wasn't just a wooden box with rotors and wires. It was a reminder that the most sophisticated technology can be undone by human error, that the most complex codes have weaknesses hiding in plain sight, that breaking something and knowing when to use that advantage are 2 very different skills. And maybe most importantly, it showed us that history doesn't always recognize its heroes. Sometimes the people who change the world die forgotten, prosecuted, or erased. Today you're using encryption 1,000 times more powerful than Enigma every time you send a text message, check your bank account, or shop online. Your phone encrypts data using 256-bit AES encryption. That's 115 quad-or vigintillion possible combinations. A number so large it makes Enigma look like a child's toy. But the principle remains exactly the same. Someone builds an unbreakable system, and someone else finds the crack. The race between codemakers and codebreakers never ends. It just moves to new battlegrounds. The machine that was supposed to give Germany an unstoppable advantage did change history, just not the way they intended. And the people who broke it, they saved the world and couldn't tell anyone about it. The encryption protecting your data right now is more powerful than anything the Enigma team could have imagined. But it's also more vulnerable. If you want to understand how modern encryption works, and why quantum computers might break it all, check out this video next. And if you made it this far, you're officially smarter than a Nazi submarine commander. Subscribe for more stories where technology, secrets, and history collide in ways you never expected.